Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're diving into a concept from our source material that literally flips the script on modern workplace dynamics. Seriously, if you've ever felt that crushing, exhausting weight of having to be the smartest person in the room at all times, well, you can go ahead and let out a sigh of relief. We're unpacking a massive insight into what it actually takes to be an effective leader today. It's an approach that totally redefines authority and frankly makes the job a whole lot more fun. So let's get right into it. So, let me ask you, do leaders always have the answers? I mean, think about that classic old-school image of a boss. You know the one. The person at the head of the table, confidently barking out solutions, never hesitating, just possessing this seemingly magical mental encyclopedia of every single detail of the business. It's kind of intimidating, right? We've been conditioned for decades by these outdated management models to believe that to be at the helm of a team, you need to be an infallible answer machine. But is that actually true in today's crazy, complex world? Well, let's look at the core paradigm shift of our explainer. We are officially moving away from this outdated myth of knowing everything and moving toward the modern reality, which is asking the smartest questions. The source material we're exploring today completely shatters the illusion that leadership equals absolute knowledge. The modern business landscape just moves way too fast for any one human brain to hold all the answers. Instead, true leadership proposes something far more dynamic and honestly, much more attainable. It's all about facilitating the collective intelligence of the amazing people around you. Which brings us nicely to our first section, the leadership myth. Our source is actually pretty blunt here, explicitly saying, if you think leaders always have the answers, think again. It's a really refreshing wake-up call to just toss out that old textbook definition of a leader. Think of the classic trap so many newly promoted managers fall into. You've got a manager in a fast-paced tech startup, for instance, and they try to dictate every line of code or every single marketing strategy because they genuinely think their new title demands absolute expertise. And what happens? They become a massive bottleneck. The product stalls, the team gets super frustrated, and the manager burns out trying to play superhero. This quote literally gives you permission to breathe and drop the cape.
Because here's the secret. True capability isn't about being a walking encyclopedia. It is found in having an incredibly inquisitive mindset. The absolute best leaders aren't the ones acting like human search engines. They're the ones who ask the smartest questions. They probe, they inquire. Instead of walking into a room and declaring, here's exactly how we're going to build this feature, a really strong leader walks in and asks, what's the most robust way to build this feature given our current timeline and resources? It shifts the dynamic entirely. It moves you from being the sole provider of answers to being the chief investigator.
All right, moving right along to Section 2, Sparking Ideas and Trust.
When you start prioritizing inquiry over dictation, you get three massive, distinct advantages. First off, asking the right questions sparks new ideas. Second, it builds incredible trust. And third, it uncovers hidden problems. Let's actually dig into that second point for a quick second. Why on earth does asking a question build trust? Well, when you admit you don't have the answer and actually turn to your team for insight, you're demonstrating vulnerability. You're showing them that you respect their expertise. Psychological safety in the workplace absolutely skyrockets when leaders are willing to just say, you know what, I don't know, what do you all think? You aren't just handing down a mandate, you're opening a collaborative door. And this creates a beautiful chain reaction. Step 1, you start by asking the right questions. Step 2, that organically sparks fresh, innovative ideas from your team. And because the team feels involved and respected in that brainstorming phase, Step 3 naturally follows, building deep, unified trust. It's a brilliant cycle. Imagine a project kickoff where the leader asks, okay, what are the potential blind spots in our current plan? Suddenly, the analyst who rarely speaks up points out a critical flaw. The idea is integrated, the project is saved, and that analyst now trusts the leader implicitly because their voice was actually valued. So why does this matter so much for your own day-to-day leadership? Because questions are your best tool for uncovering hidden problems. When you assume you know everything, you only look for the problems you already understand. But thoughtful questions act as a powerful diagnostic tool. Consider a real-world scenario from supply chain management. Let's say a company is missing its delivery targets. The know-it-all leader might just yell at the warehouse to work faster, but the inquisitive leader asks the warehouse floor, what specific part of this process is keeping you up at night? That one simple question might reveal a broken software integration that the executive suite literally knew nothing about. You can't fix what you don't know is broken, right? And you won't know it's broken unless you ask.
Let's slow things down a bit now for Section 3, the power of listening.
They listen more than they talk. I really want you to let that bold quote from the source sink in for a moment. This represents the fundamental, absolutely required turning point in a modern leader's daily behavior. If you're asking smart questions but then immediately interrupting the answer, or just waiting for your turn to speak, you've missed the point entirely. The true power of a question is creating the space to actually absorb the response. 2 ears, 1 mouth, we've got to use them in that exact proportion. The source highlights some awesome active listening techniques to pull this off, like the 3-second rule. That literally means pausing for 3 full seconds after someone finishes speaking to ensure they're truly done and to process what they said before you jump in with your own reply.
So, what's the ultimate human goal of stepping back, closing our mouths, and truly listening? As our source points out, it's about making everyone feel heard. This is exactly where you transform a group of employees into a fiercely dedicated team. The data strongly shows that teams who feel genuinely heard and recognized are significantly more likely to stick around and be actively engaged in their work. When a leader listens, it signals deep respect. It proves that a team member's perspective is a vital piece of the overall puzzle, which drastically reduces turnover and boosts morale in the process.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, helping your team shine.
As a leader, your role completely shifts from the person pulling all the ideas out of a hat to the person holding the compass. It is not about knowing everything. It is about being deeply curious. Whenever you feel that imposter syndrome creeping in because you don't have an immediate, perfect answer to a complex crisis, just remind yourself that your job is to lean heavily into curiosity. You are the facilitator. Your job is to set the direction, ask the probing questions, and let the collective brainpower of your team fill in the map.
And that brings us right back to the active practice asking better questions. Now, I want to remind you that this isn't some passive trait. You don't just wake up one day as a master questioner. It requires a deliberate, active effort every single day to continuously refine the questions you ask. It's the difference between lazily asking, "Are we on track?" and asking, "What is the biggest obstacle preventing us from moving faster right now?" One gets a simple yes or no, the other sparks a critical, absolutely necessary conversation.
Ultimately, abandoning that old know-it-all myth doesn't diminish your power as a leader, it completely elevates it. It allows you to become a true facilitator of your team's brilliance. By asking the right questions and genuinely listening to the answers, you're helping your team shine. You create an environment where their expertise gets to step directly into the spotlight. You transition from being a dictator to being a conductor, ensuring every single instrument in the orchestra gets to play at its absolute best.
So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. The next time you step into a meeting, or the next time you're leading a project or managing a sudden crisis, what's your instinct going to be? Will you rush in to provide all the answers just to prove your worth, or will you take a breath, lean into your curiosity, and ask the smartest questions? The choice is entirely yours, and it changes absolutely everything about how your team operates. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.